Why do we march? To protest government policy. We march because it's time to fight back.
As millions march here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we continue with this discussion of what happened in Winnfield, Louisiana, not 45 minutes from Jena. And the connections go on from there. But our guests are Howard Witt, the Pulitzer-nominated journalist, writes for the Chicago Tribune, wrote the first major story on what happened in Winnfield, as well as the Jena 6, the first major national story. He's Southwest Bureau Chief of the Chicago Tribune. He's based in Houston, speaking to us from Unity, the Unity Conference that's taking place right now in Chicago, of the four major journalists of color organization, the largest gathering of journalists in the country. Democracy Now! Will be broadcasting from there tomorrow. We're also joined by Lieutenant Charles Curry, spokesperson for the Winnfield Police Department in Louisiana. We go now to Kayshon Collins. She is the stepmother of Baron Pikes. Can you talk about your stepson? Can you talk about what happened?
Oh, he was, he had just turned 21, like on the 12th of January, and this incident happened on the 17th of January. He mostly stayed to himself that, you know, a lot of negative things have been said about him, and, you know, I just want everything to be cleared up and his name be cleared or whatever, you know, the case may be.
What is your reaction to the release of the autopsy report?
When we got the death certificate, it really, you know, hurt because of what his death was ruled as. But I hope everything, you know, just be done fairly and the case be treated in a, you know, fair manner. I don't want anything, I don't want no any racial tension or anything stirred in Winnfield because the community is upset, and I just want peace and closure to this situation.
Lieutenant Charles Curry, is there any discussion of charges being brought against Scott Nugent? Yes, he was fired from the police chief. He's the son of the former police chief?
That's correct.
Is there a discussion?
Any discussion about charges would be from the DA's office. The DA will probably present this to the grand jury as soon as he has all the information. They're going to decide if there's going to be charges or not.
Howard Witt, can you describe Winnfield for us in the pieces that you've done? You locate it for us both in geography, but just in terms of politically, what its history is and its racial history as well.
Yeah. Winnfield has a very interesting political history. It's a town of about 3,000 people today. It was actually one of the few cities in the South that did not secede during the Civil War. Local folks there actually voted not to secede from the Union. Since then, today, it's roughly split about 50-50 between black and white residents. But it's also a place where when you talk to the black folks there, many of them will tell you that there is a lot of racism in that community. They feel a lot of discrimination at the hands of the local government, which is dominated mostly by whites, and also at the hands of the police. And it's a town that has a rich history because it's the birthplace of both Huey and Earl Long, two of Louisiana's most famous and some would say infamous governors. It's also a town that has a recent history of a lot of questionable corruption and history. The former police chief, the father of Scott Nugent, a man named Gleason Nugent, committed suicide in 2005. That was after a little while after he had lost a close race for re-election to police chief, which was marred by a lot of allegations of fraud. A few months after Nugent committed suicide, the local district attorney, a man named Terry Reeves, committed suicide, and he was under investigation, under suspicion for massive corruption, diverting hundreds of thousands of dollars from his office and extorting payoffs from defendants in order to make their cases go away. So there's a very rich background there of corruption, which is why this case in particular has drawn a lot of scrutiny and why the coroner told me he was concerned to make sure that the truth comes out about this case, because there's this feeling that in a town like Winnfield, things can be made to go away, and some people want to make sure that that doesn't happen. The last interesting point about Winnfield is it's located about 40 miles from Jena, Louisiana. And as you mentioned in your introduction, there's a direct tie to Jena in this very bizarre and tragic way, in that Baron Pikes was a first cousin to Michael Bell, one of the defendants, one of the Jena 6 defendants.
Has Michael Bell or Michael's family commented on what has happened in Winnfield?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Now, you have also covered Jena extensively, the first big national story on Jena to come out. Can you talk about the latest news on the Jena 6 and what has happened with them?
Yes, at the moment, everyone's awaiting a ruling which could come down at any point from a judge in Alexandria who was appointed to decide a motion that was brought by the remaining Jena 6 defendants to try to recuse the judge, Judge Malfrey. They accuse him of overt bias in the case, and in fact, during a hearing last month, Malfrey himself admitted having made a lot of comments inside and outside the courtroom that would suggest that he had made up his mind about the guilt of the Jena 6 defendants. So the defense attorneys have brought a motion to get him thrown off the case. That ruling is expected at any time. In addition, Michael Bell, very soon, if not already, is probably going to be free, because he will have finished, he's due to have finished serving out his sentence, which basically involved being put with a foster family elsewhere in Louisiana, and he's almost finished with that sentence if he's not already free.
And another of the Jena 6, the young men who has been held on house arrest, there was a reversal of Malfrey in that case, too. Is that right?
That's correct. One of the defendants, named Jesse Beard, who's one of the 5 remaining defendants yet to go to trial, had gone before Judge Malfrey and asked for permission to be released from probation so he could attend a special school that his attorneys had arranged for him in New York State. Malfrey declined to let him go, and in fact wanted to put him back behind bars. So that decision was appealed also to this visiting judge from Alexandria, a man named Judge Tom Yeager. And Yeager, a few weeks ago, overruled Malfrey and said that it would be okay for Beard to actually go attend this school in upstate New York. So that, in fact, was the second time that Yeager had overruled Malfrey, because last year Yeager ruled in favor of a lawsuit brought by my newspaper, the Chicago Tribune, and other media organizations, forcing Malfrey to open up the Jena 6 proceedings. Malfrey had ordered them to be closed, and Yeager ruled in our lawsuit that he was, in fact, in error and that the proceedings had to be open to the public.
And the other issue that Malfrey was reversed on was trying Michael Bell as an adult.
That's correct. The first reversal Malfrey had in this case was a decision that was made to try Michael Bell as an adult. Michael Bell was tried as an adult in court a year ago and was found guilty, but that decision was overturned by an appellate court, finding that he had been improperly tried. So Malfrey has a history of reversals in this case.
Back in Winnfield, Lieutenant Charles Curry, what is the policy of the police department in the use of taser gun?
Taser is on the same continuum level as the collapsible baton and chemical spray. It is used to bring a non-compliant subject into compliance.
If I might add,
Howard Witt.
Yes, the actual written policy of the police department says something different. It doesn't say to bring a non-compliant suspect into compliance. It says it's only to be used in the case where a subject is violent or poses a threat to himself or others. That doesn't appear to have been the case in this case, according to all the police reports of the incident. So doesn't it appear as if it was a contravention of the policy in this case?
Mr. Witt?
Yeah.
I don't think we all have the facts to make determinations. That's why we're having a grand jury on this situation. We don't know what the officer perceived at the time. We don't know exactly what happened. That's the reason we have the investigations and we have outside agencies looking at it.
Howard Witt.
You know, all I can say is the police report itself, written by Scott Nugent, states that Pikes was not posing a threat. He was simply